Hey there, so in this video I'm going to talk about the tension between monolithic tools versus individual discrete tools that you tie together in a tool chain. So what I'm talking about here is, let's rewind the clock way back into the early days of Unix in the 1970s. And one of the really brilliant things that the Unix creators did is they said, hey, we're going to have small tools, a bunch of command line tools like ls and grep and sed and awk and lex and yak and all these computer science tools that where each tool has one specific job. And then we're going to have this redirectable IO where you can take the output of one tool and redirect it and pipe it into the input of the next tool. And I assume I'm talking to software developers here, so obviously know what I'm talking about. And so, that creates a lot of flexibility because that means you can combine and recombine tools in a lot of different ways. And it works really good in a command line environment where you can, have this redirectable IO idea. Now, on the other end of that spectrum is what we call a monolithic tool, like a tool that just has like everything but the kitchen sink built into it, right? So like, maybe you could think of almost like something like Microsoft Word as a bit of a monolithic tool in the sense that it's got mail merge built into it, it's got spell checking built into it, it's got the ability to print envelopes built into it, it's got like all this kind of functionality that's built into the tool. And so that, that's the other side of this dynamic. And where does this shake out? So the type of tools that I'm thinking about right now are thought processing tools, specifically thought processing tools that help software developers. So I'm talking about things like note-taking tools, note-taking tools like maybe Evernote or OneNote, documentation tools like Confluence, a corporate wiki like Confluence. I'm thinking about code search tools, mind mapping tools, something like Xmind, to allow you to do brainstorming and map out your thoughts. I'm thinking about user story mapping. I mentioned this book in one of my other videos, user story mapping. There are some tools out there that allow you to implement the idea of mapping out user workflows. I'm thinking about screenshot tools, like I'm recording this video right now with Snagit, which can also take screenshots. So screenshotting tools, image augmentation tools, like I can draw a box on an image, on top of an image. I'm thinking about some other tools, but all of those kind of tools. Zettelkasten type tools like Rome Research and Obsidian that allow you to connect ideas and thoughts together. And that, how is this gonna? There is no monolithic tool out there that does all of these things. Now we're working on a tool, and it's not a monolithic tool either. It may someday be a platform upon which you could build a monolithic tool like this. Creating some common plumbing. So the tool we're writing is called Open Squiggly, and you could kind of think of it as it's a bit of a cross between a corporate wiki like Confluence, a Zettelkasten system like Obsidian or Rome Research, and a code search tool, kind of all combined together into one tool. And it's designed to help software developers do their jobs effectively, to connect, to engage with the project that they're working on, particularly when it's a large code base and the code base is broken up into lots of different repositories that live in microservices and cloud services and microservices, and each one of those is in its own separate repository, and all these repositories exist out there somewhere in the corporate world. And you as a developer are hired, and your manager says, "Hey, Kevin, do this," and you're like, where do I even start, right? Like, I have to connect. I have to do all this deep diving research and connect all of these ideas. But yeah, these are the tools, like these thought processing tools, right? How can I engage deeply with the project? How can I have documentation? How can I create documentation? How can I make sense out of somebody else's documentation? How can I take the code and find what I'm looking for in the code? Even something as simple as, hey, I need to know what the database schema is. I need to know how this particular thing is persisted in the database. And I need to go find that somehow, either in the documentation or in the source code. But all these, like in a perfect world, I would have fluid access to all these tools that I'm talking about. I'd have a brainstorming tool for mind mapping. I'd have a user story mapping tool. I would have an image capture, a video program, an augmentation tool, a drawing tool, a note-taking system, a Zettelkasten system, and all of these tools would then be able to seamlessly coexist, whether it's on that end of the spectrum where it's a bunch of individual tools that are somehow able to chain all these together. Although that's a learning curve. See, if I'm going to do that, individualized tools then have a large learning curve into which tools am I going to pick and how am I going to tie them all together. And then versus a monolithic tool, which, I mean, the downside to a monolithic tool like what I just described, there's no tool out there that exists like that today. Now, maybe someday in the future, there will be like some big mega company that creates this type of thought engagement tool that's got all of these different things into it, and combines it. And the other thing we're trying to do with Open Squiggly is that we're specifically targeting it towards software developers. And so if we take something like, mind mapping, like I want a mind map about the code. So I don't want to just have any old generic mind map. I want to have mind maps about snippets of code, right, that take me into these different repositories. And again, the reason why I'm trying to do this is because, this is what the work entails a lot of times, where your manager just says, hey, Kevin, here's a bug. It's been in the backlog for 7 years. We need it fixed right away. Customers are bitching about it. We need it fixed right away. And, you're like, what the hell? Like, who wrote it? Oh, that was written by a team in Vietnam 6 years ago. We closed that office down 6 years ago. We need you to do it. There's nobody else here that knows anything about this code. We need you to do it. You're like, okay, all right. I mean, I'm starting a little flat-footed here, but all right. That kind of thing, this deep engagement with highly complex work, connecting these dots together, allowing you to visualize it, tie it back to the code, because ultimately these thoughts that you're working on, tie back to code usually. And so you're trying to make a user story or get a bug fixed or something like that. But in the process of doing that, you're having all this deep thinking, engaging work, which then draws you into these different types of tools. So anyways, like I said, we're trying to make a dent in this kind of universe with Open Squiggly. But I'll be interested to see, kind of as the years go on, how this tension between a monolithic tool and individualized tools shakes itself out in this space, in this thought processing space for software developers specifically. Thanks.